Hi, welcome to Spire Climbing. This is a short introductory course to top rope belaying. Top rope belaying means you'll be pulling out slack as the climber ascends the wall. Your main objective, quite obviously I guess, is to keep your climber breathing, happy, and alive. So, in this climbing adventure, there are two players. There's the belayer, who's going to clip into the rope, and there's the climber, who's going to tie into the rope. When wearing one of Spire's rental harnesses, ensure that all of the buckles are loosened. Pull the waistband above your hip bone. Tighten the waist first so that it can't slip over your hips, and then tighten leg loops. Spire's rental harnesses are self-locking, as are many harnesses on the market today. However, if you have a harness that is not, it's still pretty simple. Thread the webbing through the buckle. Pull the harness tight. Take the end of the webbing and place it through the end of the buckle again. If it's done properly, you'll see only one bar of metal exposed. I have already doubled back each buckle on my leg loops. To begin tying the figure 8, we must first place the 8 in the rope. To do this, place both hands at the end of the line. Then slide one hand down the rope until you've reached 4 or 4.5 feet. At this point, you may drop the end of the line. Once you have the rope in one hand, create a bite. This is simply a fancy way of saying a bend in the line. Once you have your bite, take the end of the rope and wrap it all the way around the bite. Once you've gone all the way around, punch the end of the line through the bite. At this point, you should have the skeleton of your knot, or the 8. Once this is completed, take the end of the line and thread it up through the red loop of the harness. Pull the skeleton close to your harness. From this point, you may begin tracing the knot. You start from the bottom and simply follow the 8 through the knot. Make sure that you've pulled enough through that the knot is close to the harness. When you have finished tracing, you have a double 8 knot. Make sure that the knot is close to the harness and that there is at least 6 inches of tail sticking through the knot. At this point, the climber and the belayer will attach themselves to the rope. The climber will attach themselves to the rope via the figure 8 retrace knot. The belayer will attach the grigri to their harness. Make sure that all the hardware, all the metal, is in a nice straight, flat line, and that the brake line on the grigri is pointed straight down. Once you have attached it to your harness, immediately lock the carabiner. Once the climber has completed tying in, we perform a visual inspection. This is called the buddy check. The belayer makes sure that the climber's knot is tied properly, that it is tied to the proper points on their harness. Then I check to make sure that her harness is doubled back, meaning that it cannot loosen or, more importantly, come off while she's climbing. To do this, I make sure I can only see one bar metal on every buckle. My climber then checks me. She makes sure that my carabiner is locked, and that my harness is doubled back. Once we've done this, I pull all the slack out of the system until I can feel my climber. At this point, my climber asks, "On belay."
On belay?
Belay is on. This means I'm ready for her to begin climbing. When she's ready, she'll ask, "Climbing."
Climbing.
And when I'm ready for her to climb, I respond with, "Climb on." As she climbs, I pull slack out of the system by pulling down with my left hand, up with my right hand simultaneously. The trick to this belay method is to make sure you pull at the same time. Once your right hand or your brake hand comes down, bring your left hand to your right hand, or bring your left hand below your right hand, and slide your right hand back up the brake line. Your right hand is the brake hand. Basically, short of atomic warfare, this hand should never leave the line. When you pull, your brake hand, or your right hand here, must come all the way down to your leg loop before you slide your hand back up to the grigri. This belay method ensures that if you ever switch to a device that does not lock automatically, you will belay properly and safely. Once the climber has reached the top or the highest point they wish to climb, they will call down take. This means take all the slack out of the system. You do this usually with 2 additional pulls. At this point, you will call up and say, "Got you." Once you have done that, the climber may let go of the wall. Once the climber has let go of the wall, slide your brake hand down to your leg loop for additional leverage. Double check with your climber to make sure that she is off the wall, and then begin to slowly pull back the lever. You control rate of descent by how far back you pull this lever and how fast you let it slide through your hand. If at any point it feels that the rope is sliding too quickly, let go of the lever and the whole system stops. It is imperative that you do not touch the lever until the climber is completely off the wall. If you pull the lever too quickly or too soon, you can shock load the system, meaning you can drop your climber. Always make sure that your climber has let go of the wall. This is especially important when belaying small children. Have them hold on to the rope. Once your climber has reached the ground, you may give them additional slack so they can stand comfortably. Remember, this is a brief introduction into top rope belaying. Please check in with the front desk for further instruction and have fun. And thanks for climbing at Spire Climbing Center.